Hi, and welcome to Live with Main Street. I am back, everybody. I'm back in the game. As most of you probably know, I was out on maternity leave. I have a 3-month-old son, Chase. He was born in September. So today it's my first week back, and it's been going pretty smoothly. And Cindy and I logged in today to talk to you guys about the best of 2019. So we were trying to decide what way to approach this session today. And we kind of came to this conclusion, Cynthia can talk on it as well, but we came to this conclusion that we are producing so much content here at Main Street. And I think, this is a perfect opportunity to put all those things into one place. Ironically, we ended up choosing 4 different sources of media that we do here. And just to kind of call awareness, if you're not following us on Twitter or on Facebook, maybe you don't know that we have video shows. Anna does her money date, Jim does swim with Jim. There's often live Facebook shows. Hopefully you're reading our articles and our blog posts. Something you may not know is we produce them specifically for Main Street. But then we also produced for some major articles. And this year alone, we had investment news and lending tree, bank rate, US World and News, Forbes, all sorts of things just in 2019 that we kind of tried to share our expertise. Actually, quick funny story, the Forbes article that I was really excited about, that I was quoted in, it came out on the day that Chase was born. So I like to think that was just an extra special day for me. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to tell you, I picked 2 and Cynthia picked 2. So the first thing that I wanted to kind of call attention to that I think was some of our best of 2019 was we came up with this money roadmap challenge. And the idea is there's a certain period of time, we're still kind of working with whether we think a 7-day challenge or a 28-day challenge, what the right time frame is. If you have some feedback, let us know. But ultimately, it's this challenge where, you get involved with us and you go through this certain period of time where we break down very specific topics when it comes to personal finance. It touches the softer stuff like your ingrained beliefs about money and how you spend according to your values. And then it goes through the basics of how to prepare for big purchases, a car, a house, maybe you're buying a business. Then it continues on into those heavy hitting retirement topics, whether it's Medicare, Social Security, long-term care, RMDs, and each of us produced a lot of content for it. We created new articles, new posts, and we actually made really quick videos that I like to think are pretty good, where we talk about, this is what you need to know about these topics. One of my favorites that obviously is in tune to my stage of life right now talks about kids and money. So we really broke it down and said, how do you talk to your kids about money? How do you build an entrepreneurial spirit, in them? I know Cynthia talked about, whether a Roth IRA is the best way for them to save money or should the assets be held in the kids' names. So it's a really cool program. So feel free to check it out after this session. Cynthia and I are going to put all the little links here for you in the caption under the description so you can access everything. But I have to say for 2019, that was brand new for us to do as a firm. And I think it's been a pretty heavy hitting impact one. So Cynthia, on to you.
Great, thanks, Liz. So one of the ones that that actually got a lot of views, I'm talking about views now, is one of the Live with Main Streets that Anna and I did on open enrollment. And it was actually posted on Facebook Live. So we did it on Facebook and we did it live. So that was pretty cool. So again, it was on open enrollment, and it's worth taking a look and seeing what we said or hearing what we said, because open enrollment is still open until December 15th. And we collected some questions from all of our clients, and they kind of came up to be about the same type of questions. So we answered those all together. One of them was what should you be looking at when looking at the different options of healthcare. So you're getting that booklet, and it's got all those columns and rows and numbers and numbers and numbers and what you should be looking at. Well, I talk about doing the math and making sure that if you have a lot of doctor's appointments, if you have a lot of prescriptions, if that makes sense, that it makes sense for you to have a lower percentage that you have to pay out of pocket for prescriptions, or how many times you go to the doctor, a lower dollar amount there, versus if you have something that, if you don't go to the doctor a lot, if you don't have a lot of prescriptions, then having a higher deductible plan so that the premiums would be lower. So there's sort of that offset between what you are paying out of pocket and what you're paying in terms of premiums to determine what makes sense for you. You know, you have to make sure that whatever it is something that you use. And that's actually something that Anna talks about as well within this video, making sure that whatever it is, it's something that you use. And if you've had some life changes, maybe there's some of these benefits that you're not using. And so does it make sense to actually pay for them? Probably not. Something else we talk about is disability insurance. And I really liked Anna's analogy of what if you had an ATM in your garage and it spit out money every 2 weeks? Would you insure that? Probably, right? So that ATM, that's you. So you are generating all this cash every 2 weeks, and disability insurance, particularly long-term disability insurance, is one way of making sure that you've got some money every 2 weeks. So that was a really good comment that she made, and it makes a lot of sense, looking at your benefits to make sure that you've got the either short-term disability, but particularly long-term disability. And then, of course, we also talked about employee assistance. So things like tuition reimbursement, legal assistance, or even financial planning. Maybe your company has some kind of financial planning assistance where you can actually talk to a CFP and have some of your questions answered. So bottom line, it makes sense to look through your booklet as well and see what benefits you can take care of, can use. And because the point is that those benefits are for you. It's a perk of you working there. So that was definitely one of the articles that, well, actually the show, that got a lot of hits and a lot of views. So it's well worth revisiting if you haven't seen it already.
So Cynthia chose one that she happened to be a part of, so I couldn't help it, but I had to choose one that I was a part of, right? We're going to be a little self-serving here because, well, we're the ones who are hosting. So my second one, well, technically it's Jim's show, so whatever, it's half and half. But as I mentioned, Jim has a show, and it's called Swim with Jim. And it's a pretty cool show. He kind of does it as a timely piece when something comes up. I don't think he's worked out a specific pattern. It just where he chooses to have a guest on his show. It's nice and short. The episodes are typically between like 10 and 20 or so minutes. But he has a special guest on and he asks them questions. Sometimes it's more philosophical. Sometimes it has to do with, having an expert and they want to discuss their expertise in any particular field. But he invited me on right after the new year. So at the very beginning of this year, to talk about financial freedom, which is really exciting. So the reason why it happened was we had a client that reached out. She read my bio and she said, thanks for writing. I feel like I have a better idea of who you are and why you're in this field. Do me a favor. Can you tell me what financial freedom means to you? Jim was CC'd on the email. So he signed me up for the homework and said, okay, well, not only should you respond to her, but I want you to come on my show and to talk about it. So it's a quick episode. It's only about 11 minutes. But I really enjoyed it. I love talking about the softer side of financial planning, as many of us do. And it really is, in the episode, I talk about a few different things. First, how I learned to define financial freedom for myself, how my particular debt journey is what led to my definition of financial freedom, and how I went from a place of complete scarcity and fear to abundance and empowerment, how that obviously sparked a career change, right? For me to be able to change my career, change my life as I got my financial ducks in a row. And one of my other favorite topics that for any of you who know me, I can't help but work into a conversation is my experience as a Division I athlete, as a volleyball player, how that kind of led into my debt journey. And so what I learned about, resilience and sticking to a goal and tenacity. And it's always fun when I can kind of blend my personal life with my work life together. So if you're bored, if you have 11 minutes, I think Jim and I really, really enjoyed building that video together. So be sure to check it out.
Excellent. Yeah. And I love when you weave your personal stories in to, articles or the shows, all of us actually, because it just, we have experience in so much things, not only from our education, but personal too. And, I know that I love to share my experience, my family in particular, with everyone, with our clients, because, there's a lot of learning points there, things I wish I would have known. But I think all of these give us, these articles, these blogs, gives us an opportunity to just reach out and, give people a lot of this information that they can use as well. And speaking of Jim, I've got one of the other really popular articles that has been seen so many times. It's been always on the top of like how many people have clicked on it, is one of Jim's articles. And that one's the retiree 3-bucket approach to asset allocation. And Jim did that in July, on July 24th of this year. And ultimately what that article explains is it answers the question, where do I take my money from to supplement my other cash flows when someone is a retiree? And so that's not something that Jim had created himself. That was in 1970, created by a man called Harold Evansky. And it's really just addressing the risk of having to sell in a down market. And if you haven't heard us talk about the bucket approach, where have you been? Because we talk about it a lot. But if you haven't heard it, it makes sense to go and revisit Jim's article, because it starts with the 3 buckets, and it talks about the risk allocated to each and the timeline. So that way you can see the time frame and the risk per bucket and how that applies to you. So you've got your 3 buckets. Bucket 1, where there's no volatility, less risk, shorter time frame, anywhere between like 1 to 3 years. Bucket 2, where there's low volatility, still a little bit of risk, but you've got sort of a midterm timeline between 3 and 7 years. And then bucket 3 is your anything from 7 years plus. And so that's where you can take additional risk. So you're able to withstand a little bit more volatility, because you have, other market cycles that you could go through. And each of these buckets, buckets 2 and buckets 3, can put money into bucket 1. And that's where you're going to be pulling your cash flows from in retirement. And ideally what you'd want as a retiree is to have 3 years worth of your expenses, your cash needs, and your emergency fund in that bucket. And that allows you to stop worrying about whatever happens with the market. So if you want to stop worrying about the fluctuation of the market, this is one way of helping you do that. And again, that's an article by Jim, the retiree 3-bucket approach to asset allocation. So as Liz started, there's a lot of content that we create, and that can be in the blogs that we have, and you can go to our website to find those. Shows is also on the website as well, or you could see them either on Facebook, and we also have a YouTube channel. So you can look at some of those videos on YouTube, see us talk a lot about different types of things. And don't forget about Twitter as well. We might post things to Twitter or LinkedIn, but the point of what we want to do is just to give information and to let you guys have some resources. And if you have any questions, contact us, and we can help you through any of these items, any of these roadblocks that you might come across, so you can achieve all your goals. So that's it for us today, this month, and we'll see you next year.
Bye, guys.
Main Street. Bye.